Welcome back to Seneschal. Today I am going to combine the last two Battle Sister Bulletins and cover them in one video. While many people seem disappointed by the Battle Sister Bulletin dedicated in part to old lore, I think there are some definite nuggets to glean from Battle Sister Bulletin number 6. We have a very abbreviated introduction of the Reign of Blood, the founding of the Order's Militant, and the Sanctuary 101 Massacre. Next we move on to the March of the Penitent. Sisters of the Valorous Heart and Ebon Chalice are nearly slaughtered by a Wa of War Boss Black Axe, but hundreds of Repentia sacrifice themselves to hold off the attackers, giving enough time for 24 Penitent engines to burst out from the cathedral to avenge the fallen martyrs of both orders. Unfortunately, this one doesn't give much extra information as far as the planet or any special characters involved. Then we have the Slaying of the Tyrant story, which covers Sisters of the Order of Our Martyred Lady, along with Militarum allies, against Tyrannid invaders on Ocassus. Retributors and Exorcists burn through the first wave of interlopers, but the second wave is able to breach the defenses and into close quarters combat. Canis Praxides gallantly leads from the front and kills a Hive Tyrant in melee, which is pretty damn impressive, allowing for the withdrawal of refugees escaping from the clutches of Hive Freak Kraken. She does die from the wounds suffered at the hands of the Hive Tyrant she slew, becoming sainted for being the first martyr to Kraken. Next we touch on the story of the awakening of the Primarch, and Celestine taking part in the Celestine Crusade to return him to his father on Terra. Shockingly, they didn't bring up Inquisitor Greyfax trying to hold Celestine as impure. That being said, Greyfax did eventually come around to recognizing Celestine for what she was, or what she is, I should say. Though I did joke with friends at the time that if the story came out that Greyfax was considering taking Celestine in, she better be careful around airlocks, because there might be one less Inquisitor and a few more Sisters of Repentia at the end of that day. Next new story we have is from titled Path of Righteousness. Missionary Delamet de Montbard leads the War of Faith into the Cicatrix Maledictum. I do apologize about pronunciation of his name. I probably slaughtered that, so sorry in advance. The entire crusade isn't heard of again, but suddenly 10 years later, when his coffin emerges from the warp storm, with a journal recounting hundreds of years of battles. Now this one I love. I think the full story in the Codex has the option to bring up any number of avenues. Who put him in the coffin? With the journal. Did he write the journal? Was it someone else? Could they have come across Caldor Drago, a new living saint? Are there survivors still in the crusade fighting to this day? This could be used to go in a million different directions, and I'm really excited to see this story fleshed out in the full codex. Next we have the Threshing Fields. The New Sisters get slaughtered narrative, but with a twist this time that they do have the sole survivor. Sisters begin the campaign as a new recruit, is yet to see any combat, but by the end of the year-long conflict must be an incredibly grizzled war veteran. So I really want to see Sister Assumpta as a new named character, possibly even the character we've been shown with the painted model reveal. I like the little detail of the sisters burning all the biomass to try and slow down the Tyranid threat by starving them out as much as possible. And this is, nicely, something that's focused on the Order of Bloody Rose. So it's not just all our Martyred Lady, so that's good. The one thing I really hope we see lore-wise in the new codex that wasn't touched on here is that the sisters haven't had an Abbess Sanctorum since Sabrina disappeared on a pilgrimage to San Leor. I want to see her either recovered or a death confirmed so a new leader can be confirmed, especially since this is a position that can sit on the High Lords of Terra, which again allows for some really cool options lore-wise, especially if we do have a return of another Primarch, say the Lion, who maybe stands in a little bit more stark anger with the status of the Imperium and specifically of like the Ecclesiarchy. Alright, that is the end of the 6th Battle Sister Bulletin. Now on to the 7th, your first painted plastic Battle Sister. This one allows for less insight than the previous bulletin. I will say kudos to Darren Latham who designed this model because, like I said before, I liked the 3D rendering, but the model looks just even better in plastic and is a very loving recreation of the artwork we saw on the Faith and Fire cover. They discuss some details of the paint job, matching the colors and whatnot. One sentence of particular note, they state, after all, as well as being an impressive showcase model, the Battle Sister would eventually form the template around which the rest of the range would be based. This is of note to me for two reasons. First, that we are looking at a template model for Battle Sisters as a whole, though very much more ornate than a standard Battle Sister is likely to be. Secondly, that she is in fact a Battle Sister and not of another rank. This is important to me because it's a large part of why I think this model may be used for Sister Assumpta, rather than, say, having that model be a Celestine character like a Sister Miriam or some other new character. This is a Battle Sister rather than, a Canoness or anybody else. Could be completely off base. I think it's a theory that has a solid chance to be accurate. The one big detriment to this theory being correct is that Assumpta is Bloody Rose, while the model is painted up as Order of Our Martyred Lady. So, we'll see. They then talk about the blacks and reds, making the details stand out. They did not divulge which reds they use, so I'm intrigued to see if this model comes out in June alongside the contrast paints, and if some of those paints were part of the painting process for this model. Since them taking this much time to go through a detailed look at the model, discussing painting, without really saying what paints you need to recreate this for yourself, is kind of unusual in my mind. Alright, that brings us to the end of the 7th Battle Sister Bulletin, with 1 week to go before our next one. Let me know what you thought about these bulletins, and if you think any of my thoughts are plausible, or just the ramblings of a madman. One more thing I want to bring up today. My local area has had a rash of store closings in the last 6 months or so the wargaming community has started to make a concerted effort for people to support their local stores. I sadly don't work for a local store anymore, but as someone who used to work for a store before I moved up here, I will say that I completely understand that this is an expensive hobby, and it's hard not to want to save money online, but I would just suggest that when you can, make at least some of your hobby purchases with your local store. Having some place to play games, use terrain, someplace that's going to run events to keep local players engaged and active is worth that 15% difference in an online price versus your local store price. Even if you don't make your total purchase at the local store, make sure if you do, say, buy a Battle Sister army, do part of it locally. Save stores from closing because there are a million games out there, and the ones that don't get played in stores just generally don't survive, or they stagnate badly. So support your friendly local store, and make sure there's a place for you to play that isn't your kitchen table, and a place for your kids to play once you hopefully, get lucky enough to get them to play too. Alright, Soapbox time over. I'm putting a little time into painting this week. I've got 3 emulators based and some blues and golds going on. I've still got a long way to go, but progress nonetheless. I want to thank you guys for your time and joining me today. Let me know what you thought. As always, the generic YouTube like and subscribe if you're interested. Remember everyone, have fun wargaming, and Ave Imperator.